Hi, I'm Julie, a single mom and a graphic designer. Before I get into my story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Now, let's get started. It was a bright and sunny morning, and the kitchen was glowing with warm golden light. It felt like the perfect day for a celebration, my daughter Joyce's 8th birthday. I was rushing around, trying to finish all the party preparations. The kitchen was filled with colorful balloons and streamers, and I wanted everything to be just right for her special day. Joyce, my little bundle of joy, was bursting with excitement. Her face lit up with happiness as she watched me. "Mommy, is the cake going to be here soon?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. "Any minute now, sweetie," I said, trying to sound calm. "Grandma Emma is bringing your special unicorn cake." But inside, I felt a little worried. I had so much to do, decorating, setting up the table, and making sure everything was perfect. I had asked Emma, Joyce's grandmother, to pick up the cake to make things easier for me. I trusted her, but something didn't feel right. As I was hanging up another string of balloons, my phone buzzed. It was Emma calling. "Hey, Emma. Is everything okay with the cake?" I asked, hoping for good news. "Julie, I'm so sorry," Emma said, sounding apologetic. "There's been a mix-up. I accidentally took the cake to the wrong house. I thought the party was tomorrow." My heart sank. "Emma, Joyce's party is in an hour. How could this happen?" I tried to stay calm, but panic was creeping in. I know. I'm so sorry. I'll figure something out," she replied. Her voice sounded flustered, but I wasn't sure if she really understood how serious this was. I ended the call, feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. Joyce was watching me closely, her big, curious eyes filling with concern. "Mommy, what about my cake?" she asked softly. I knelt down in front of her, forcing a smile. "There's been a little problem, honey. But you know what? We're going to make an even better cake, a homemade unicorn cake. What do you think?" Her face lit up instantly. "Really? We can make a unicorn cake, Mommy?" "Yes, we can," I said, my heart swelling with determination. "And it's going to be the most magical unicorn cake ever." Joyce's excitement gave me a boost of energy. Together, we pulled out the ingredients and got to work. It wasn't the plan, but I realized that sometimes the best memories come from unexpected moments. This was going to be a birthday Joyce would never forget. I smiled at Joyce's excitement, my heart warming. The kitchen quickly turned into our little bakery. Flour flew everywhere, eggs cracked with messy precision, and laughter bounced off the walls. We worked side by side, mixing, pouring, and baking. Soon, both our hands and faces were covered in sticky batter. Together, we shaped what could only be described as a lopsided, yet charming, unicorn cake. We decorated it with a random assortment of sprinkles and homemade frosting, making it uniquely ours. As the guests began to arrive, my earlier worries started to creep back in. Would everything be okay without the original cake? But Joyce's excitement snapped me out of my thoughts. "Mom, look at our cake," Joyce announced proudly, showing off our creation. "Julie, this is amazing. How did you manage this?" Nicole, one of the moms, asked, clearly impressed. "It took a little creativity and a lot of love," I replied with a smile, feeling a wave of pride wash over me. The compliments kept coming. "This cake is so cute. You should think about starting a baking business," another guest chimed in. Watching Joyce light up with pride as her friends admired the cake made my heart swell. Any trace of her earlier disappointment was gone. She laughed, played, and soaked in every moment as the center of attention. It was in that moment that I realized something important. No matter what Emma had intended, she couldn't take away the happiness of this day. The party turned out to be a hit. Joyce's smile stretched from ear to ear as she blew out her candles, making her birthday wish. Her friends cheered and clapped, their faces glowing with joy. The house was filled with the sound of laughter, singing, and happy chatter. It was beautiful chaos, and I wouldn't have changed a thing. As the party wound down and the last of the guests left, Joyce wrapped her arms around me tightly. "This was the best birthday ever, Mommy. I love you so much," she said, her voice filled with pure joy. "I love you too, sweetheart." More than anything in the world, I whispered, hugging her close. Later that evening, once the house was quiet and Joyce was asleep, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea. I reflected on the day, feeling both triumph and unease. The party had been a success, but Emma's actions nagged at me. Her apology had felt insincere, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her mix-up than she was letting on. This wasn't over. I needed to get to the bottom of what had really happened and protect Joyce from any harm Emma might cause in the future. This was just the beginning of my journey. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where I begin to uncover the truth behind Emma's actions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow along as the story unfolds. I started by casually bringing up the cake incident with Joyce's Aunt Shirley. During one of our chats, I mentioned it in passing, hoping to learn more. "Oh, Emma was so proud of getting that cake for Janet," Shirley said with a cheerful tone. "She's been planning it for weeks." Weeks? My heart sank. Her words hit me like a brick. This wasn't a simple mistake. It was deliberate. Emma hadn't mixed up the dates. She had intentionally chosen to prioritize Janet over Joyce. I felt a wave of anger and sadness, but I knew I couldn't let my emotions take over. I needed to approach this carefully. Over the next few days, I started paying close attention to Emma's behavior around Joyce and Janet. The difference was clear and undeniable. Emma doted on Janet, showering her with affection and attention. Meanwhile, Joyce received far less, almost like she was an afterthought. It hurt to watch. One evening, as I was tucking Joyce into bed, she asked me a question that broke my heart. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma like playing with me as much?" I hugged her tightly, trying to hide my own pain. "She loves you, sweetie," I said softly. "She just shows it in a different way." But deep down, I felt anger and sadness boiling inside me. It wasn't just favoritism, it was emotional harm, and I couldn't let it continue. Joyce deserved to feel loved and valued, not overlooked. I decided I needed to confront Emma, but I wanted to be prepared. Over the following weeks, I started documenting everything I noticed. I wrote down dates, times, specific examples of favoritism, and even snippets of conversations that revealed her bias. My goal wasn't just to call Emma out, but to make her see the impact of her actions. One day, I ran into Emma at the grocery store. She greeted me warmly, but I could feel a tinge of awkwardness in her tone. "Hi, Emma," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We need to talk about something important. It's about the kids." She looked surprised. "Oh, what about them?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Not here," I said firmly. "Let's meet for coffee next week." Emma hesitated, then nodded. "All right, Julie, if you insist," she replied, her expression unreadable. As the day of our meeting approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew the confrontation wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. Joyce's happiness and emotional well-being were my top priorities, and I couldn't ignore Emma's behavior any longer. Finally, the day arrived. We met at a small cafe, the air between us heavy with tension. "So, what's this about, Julie?" Emma asked casually, though her eyes seemed wary. "It's about Joyce and Janet," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've noticed how differently you treat them, and it's not fair to Joyce." "What are you implying, Julie?" Emma's voice sharpened, defensive and guarded. The conversation was just beginning, but I was ready to stand my ground. "I'm not implying anything, Emma," I said firmly. "I've seen it. The cake incident is just one example." "Why, Emma? Why do you favor Janet over Joyce?" Emma hesitated, her confident demeanor faltering. "It's complicated, Julie. You wouldn't understand." I leaned forward, my voice steady, but filled with emotion. "I need to understand, Emma. Joyce is your granddaughter too. She deserves the same love and care that Janet gets." The air between us grew heavy with tension. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, alternating between vague excuses and outright denial. She tried to dismiss my concerns, but I stood my ground. I made it clear that her behavior wasn't just unfair, it was hurtful, and it needed to change. After what felt like an eternity of back and forth, I finally left the cafe. A swirl of emotions followed me home. The confrontation had been exhausting, but I knew it was necessary. I had stood up for my daughter, and that's what mattered most. Now it was up to Emma to reflect on her actions and decide what kind of relationship she wanted to have with Joyce. Deep down, though, I knew this was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey. The following weekend, our family gathered for the annual reunion. The house was filled with laughter, the smell of delicious food, and the sound of cousins playing. On the surface, it was a happy, festive occasion. But inside, I was a bundle of nerves. I knew this was another chance to address the situation, but I wasn't sure how it would go. As I moved through the crowd, making small talk with relatives, my eyes kept drifting toward Emma. She was chatting and laughing, her carefree demeanor almost infuriating. It strengthened my resolve. I couldn't let this continue. Finally, I saw my chance. Emma was alone, refilling her drink in the kitchen. I took a deep breath and approached her. "Emma, can we talk in private?" I asked. She looked surprised but nodded, following me to a quieter corner of the room. "I need to talk to you about Joyce and Janet," I began. "I've noticed, and not just noticed, I've seen how differently you treat them. It's not fair, Emma." Emma's face hardened. "You're imagining things, Julie. This is ridiculous." "I'm not imagining anything," I replied, my voice steady. "And it's not just me who's noticed. Other people have too. Your favoritism is hurting Joyce, and I won't allow it to continue." Emma crossed her arms defensively. "You're overreacting." "No, I'm not," I said, my frustration rising. "I've watched how you dote on Janet and barely acknowledge Joyce. It's clear as day, and it's not okay." The conversation grew heated. Emma swung between denial and weak justifications, but I didn't back down. I calmly presented the evidence I had gathered, specific moments and instances that couldn't be dismissed. As our voices rose, a few family members began to notice, quietly drifting closer to listen. I turned to Emma one last time. "This has to stop, Emma. You're playing favorites, and it's damaging. Joyce deserves better." Finally, Emma's confident facade cracked. She sighed heavily, her shoulders slumping. "All right. Maybe," she began, her voice trailing off. For the first time, I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. "I've been more attentive to Janet because she needs extra support," Emma finally admitted, her voice faltering. "That's no excuse to neglect Joyce," I replied firmly. "She's your granddaughter too. She deserves just as much love and attention as Janet does." The room had fallen silent. Family members, who had initially been oblivious to the conversation, were now intently listening. Emma glanced around, realizing the weight of the moment and how exposed she had become. I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she stammered, her voice shaky. "It's not just about what you meant, Emma," I said calmly but firmly. "It's about what your actions have done. Intentions don't erase the impact, and Joyce has been affected by this." Emma tried to apologize, offering weak excuses and vague justifications, but the damage was already done. The truth was out, and there was no going back. As the conversation ended, the room buzzed with whispers and surprised expressions. It was clear that the family saw Emma differently now. In the days that followed, the family dynamic shifted. Emma, once seen as a charming and influential matriarch, found herself more isolated. Her usual charisma couldn't cover up what had been revealed. Family members were polite but distant, treating her with a new wariness. On the other hand, I noticed a change in how they treated me. There was a newfound respect and acknowledgement of the courage it took to stand up for Joyce. Joyce, blissfully unaware of the deeper details, seemed happier and more at ease. She laughed more freely, played more confidently, and radiated joy in ways I hadn't seen in a long time. That was all that truly mattered to me. The confrontation had been hard, but it opened the family's eyes to Emma's behavior and its consequences. It was a turning point, a moment that I hoped would lead to a healthier and more honest family dynamic in the future. As life moved forward, significant changes came into my own life. My career as a graphic designer flourished. With newfound creativity and confidence, my work began to attract more attention. Clients were thrilled with my designs, leading to referrals and exciting new opportunities. The recognition was rewarding, but the most important change was the happiness Joyce and I found in our daily lives. Our bond grew even stronger, and our home was filled with laughter and love. One evening, Joyce sat scrolling through my social media feed, her eyes wide with excitement. "Mom, you're the coolest. Look at all these people loving your designs," she exclaimed. I smiled, my heart swelling with pride. "We make a great team, don't we, sweetie? Together, we can do anything." Meanwhile, Emma's situation continued to evolve in a starkly different direction. The family had grown cold toward her. Invitations to events were politely declined, and her attempts to organize gatherings went largely ignored. Her calls and messages often went unanswered, and her influence within the family had all but vanished. At a family barbecue, Emma stood off to the side, her usual confident presence replaced by quiet isolation. It was clear that the family had changed, and so had I. Joyce and I were building a life filled with love, positivity, and hope, leaving behind the shadows of favoritism and pain. I saw firsthand how Emma's position in the family had changed. She tried to join conversations and activities at gatherings, but her efforts were met with polite nods and quick excuses to leave. The days when people laughed at her jokes or sought her advice were gone. Now, family members exchanged uneasy glances when she was around and found reasons to drift away. "Did you see how Aunt Emma was practically ignored when she tried to join the card game?" one of my cousins whispered to me during a family event. "Yeah, it's sad," I replied, feeling a mix of vindication and sadness. But after what happened with Joyce and everything else, people are finally seeing her true colors. The shift in how the family treated me was just as noticeable. I was no longer just Emma's daughter-in-law. I was now seen as a strong, independent woman who stood up for her child. People began to value my opinions and seek my company, a stark contrast to Emma's growing isolation. As the family dynamics continued to evolve, Joyce's next birthday approached. I was determined to make it a joyful, drama-free celebration. I planned a small, cozy party at home with just her closest friends. The house was filled with laughter, smiles, and the kind of happiness that had been missing in the chaos of the previous year. "This is the best birthday ever, Mom. You're the best," Joyce exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with pure joy. Watching her surrounded by her friends, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and relief. We had faced difficult times and come out stronger. That night, after the guests had left and Joyce was peacefully asleep, I sat alone in the quiet of the living room. I reflected on the past year and everything we had been through. Standing up to Emma had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it had opened the door to a better life for Joyce and me. Without the weight of favoritism and manipulation hanging over us, we could finally breathe freely and truly thrive. The journey had been one of growth, empowerment, and rediscovering our strength. As I sat with my thoughts, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emma. "I realize I've lost so much. I'm sorry for everything. Maybe one day we can talk," the message read. Reading her words, I felt a mix of emotions, justice, sadness, and even a small hint of hope. While it was gratifying to see her face the consequences of her actions, there was also a sense of loss for the bond that had been strained. As I turned off the lights and climbed into bed, I felt an undeniable sense of peace. Joyce and I had overcome so much together, and our bond had only grown stronger. Our journey was a testament to resilience, the power of standing up for what's right, and the unbreakable love between a mother and her daughter. Though this chapter of our story was ending, it left me with a heart full of hope for the future. What do you think about how Julie handled the situation with Emma? Do you believe she made the right decision to address the favoritism and protect Joyce? Was there a better way she could have dealt with it? Or do you think her actions were justified based on the circumstances? This story dives deep into family dynamics and the tough choices we sometimes have to make for the ones we love. It's not always easy to confront these issues, but standing up for what's right can bring about real change. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How would you have handled a similar situation? Let's start a conversation. If you enjoyed this story and the journey we've shared, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means so much and helps us continue sharing more stories like this one. Thank you for watching and being part of our journey today. Stay tuned for more heartfelt stories, and remember, you're never alone in facing life's challenges.